Hey everybody, my name is Jerry and I'm from Wild Eye. I am a little bit tired as I'm sitting to record this. I've just arrived in Oslo after an overnight flight from Johannesburg, which was one of those weird ones where you just can't sleep. You know, when you kind of, you half fall asleep, but then the guy next to you bumps you, then he wants to go pee, then you go. Long flight. So I think I must have gone about 2 hours. Then I had a 4 hour layover in Frankfurt, which was slow. I had at the security. It was the first time this has happened to me where, look, like I said on my Instagram earlier today, the content of our camera bags often scares the shit out of security guards. I get this, but I've never had it where I'm standing, so as your bag normally comes down, it goes off to the side and you wait for it and you've got to say, yes, that's mine. Next moment, there's these two full-on military police type people from the airport, one on each side of me, and they say to me they have to examine my bag. Okay, that's cool. So the person behind the x-ray machine thing proceeds to unpack every single thing. Now, when I'm saying every single thing, on my desk here in my hotel, right, there's a lot of cables and stuff in there. Everything they unpacked. And anything that could turn on, I had to turn on. It was the first time. I've never had that. Normally flying out of Oslo, I'm flying out of here tomorrow up to Longyearbyen to start the Svalbard expedition. They're quite sticky on cameras. Everything's got to come out. But I've never had that in Germany, or never where two policemen kind of with big ass guns kind of checking if I'm doing the right thing. Anyway, so got to Oslo, easy flight from Frankfurt to Oslo. Did some work earlier today now, and I'm going to record this, and I'm going to go for food, and then I'm going to crash and try and catch up on some sleep. But the cool thing is, so episode 220, which is this one, is Q&A, as you guys know, but episode 221, 222, and 223 are already finalized, wrapped, edited, good to go. So I'm glad I can get this one out. I'm then going to schedule the other episodes out for the next couple of days, even when I'm up in the Arctic. So Q&A as per normal, a whole bunch of questions here. I posted it on my Instagram feed, right? And those are the ones I'm going to answer. I screen grabbed them, so I'm going to start from the bottom and just go all the way up to the top. So here we go. Episode 220 Q&A starts now. So Jakey.88 says, do you recommend or not recommend shooting on a prime lens when sharing a safari with guests shooting on a phone? Obviously, positioning the vehicle will be harder to please both parties. Now, Jakey88, I'm not sure if you're a guide. It sounds like it. Because if you're shooting on a prime and your guest shoots on a phone, it doesn't matter. Your prime means shit. It's all about the guest. So I wouldn't find it hard positioning at all. I'll read it again. Do you recommend shooting on a prime lens when shooting safari with guests shooting on a phone? It's a no-brainer. If your guest is on a phone or on a prime, you position for the guest. End of story. There's a lot of stories going around of the guides, the Jerrys, God, I hope not, but the people who do what I do out there, saying to the guests, just hang on, let me just get my shot first, then we'll reposition for you. That's just dog shit. That's just wrong. Anyway, so JK88, you position for what your guest wants. Done. Nikki247 says, question. I currently have a Canon 77D and looking at upgrading. My focus is wildlife photography and bird life. I'm looking at the Canon 5D4, but getting mixed opinions. Some say due to the low frames per second, it's not the ideal wildlife camera. Some say rather stay with crop sensor than full frame. Would really appreciate some guidance from your expertise. Okay, so the problem with the full frames always used to be, like the 5D, what you say is, it didn't fire as far, it didn't go at 14 frames a second. It went, I don't know what, my brain's a bit tired, right? I think it's like 7 maybe. And then the crop sensor as well. So I'm probably the wrong person to ask, because I believe anybody who goes on a 1DX2 or a D5 and they just go brrr and they rattle off and select the best image without having some kind of idea what they're trying to shoot, I think they're being lazy. I would much rather, from a quality point of view, I would much rather have something like a 5D4 because the quality is beautiful and pick my shots. I always say to my clients in the field, shoot short bursts, 3 at a time. And for that is perfect. Also, I mean, let's be honest here, Nikki247. What are you going to do with your images? So let's say there's a sequence of a bird taking off and you get 3 out of a sequence rather than 4 out of a sequence. Does it really make a difference? I don't know. People get lost in this whole frame rate thing. I would personally go for quality first over the frame rate thing. But hey, each to his own. So over your 770D, I would go 5D4 personally and be more specific as to when you shoot your short bursts, right? And staying with the crop, not necessarily, because the old argument there was you want the crop because then you get the multiplication factor, 1.5, 1.6, Nikon Canon. But now you get something like the D850 or the 5DSR, which is like 50 megapixels. I would rather shoot the quality and crop in a little bit. It can make you lazy, but I would still want to rather go that route. I hope that helps. What do we got here? I've got Shauna.g Photography. F-stops and ISO have always made instant sense to me. My Achilles, remembering what shutter speed I want quickly. Do you have a way of explaining shutter speeds that they would stick in my brain? I do actually. It's much easier if we're in the field, right, for me to explain to you how it works. But the old thing of 1 over your shutter speed still holds true. 1 over your focal length. I told you my brain's tired. 1 over your focal length. If you're shooting a 300mm, you want to have 1 over 300 minimum. Or if you're shooting a 600, you want to have 1 over 600 minimum. It's old school, but it still works. There's things like vibration reduction and so on that will influence it. But Shauna, I would just go for that for you for now. 1 over shutter speed, still brace, still beanbag if you use that. Then if you get to things like rain, for example, that's different. Because I was just processing images earlier on. I'm catching up. And there was one elephant in the rain shot, which I will tell my clients in the field, depending on how heavy it rains. But as a ballpark, 1 over 500, 1 250, 125. So you take 500, half 250, half 125 for different types of rain images. But for general, what you're talking about here, 1 over focal length is still a good place to start. It's old school and you can get away with much slower. Use that for now though. Moving up here, SIOUXX420. How did you become a field guide and where did you train to become one? Could you recommend organizations for those not as fortunate but very interested in the industry? I have covered this in many podcasts in the past. Go dig back. Right now, though, if you want to look at a course, I would recommend getting in touch with Eco Training. Really, we know the guys. They're really, really good. But go scratch some of the old content. I did this on the Wildlife Q&A. It's all there. My whole story's there. Maybe one day I will go into it in more detail. But for now, that info is out there. And look at Eco Training. They're proper. And then up here, Jonathan Ehrman says, what's a good location for photographing grizzlies? So the places, I'm planning a trip to Alaska in 21, right? But at this stage, I've been to Tweedsmuir, which is like a grizzly reserve. Fantastic. We do drifts up and down the river. That was amazing. Also, I've had ridiculous grizzly sightings in the Great Bear Rainforest. Even though we go there for what are they called? Spirit bears. The grizzly viewing has been ridiculous. But I know there's places up in Alaska. I'm busy homeworking that now for a new trip. So that, whenever I'm back at the office, I'll start looking at that again. But for now, Tweedsmuir up in British Columbia and the Great Bear Rainforest, some of the inlets, Coots and Mussel Inlet specifically, absolutely amazing. Really, really good. Moving up here, Capture Africa says, question, when I post my images onto social media platforms like Instagram and Facebook, they lose a significant amount of quality. Is there any way to prevent this from happening? It shouldn't. Are you posting straight from your phone? So the couple of things you have to keep in mind, don't export too small because then Instagram's going to try and pull it back up, right? So I export all mine around about 1920 at the shortest edge, and then upload from there. I've uploaded from my phone, I've uploaded off Hootsuite, I've uploaded straight from Lightroom, I've uploaded from Flume, and it always works. So I think it's not Instagram, I think it's your export size that might be the concern there. So Capture Africa, drop me a message if you don't understand the export dynamics in Lightroom, but make sure you're going 72 dpi at least 1920 on the longest edge. Nice one, 4x5 orientation for a portrait, and anything pretty much for a landscape. Hope that helps. John Purvis asks, question, I'm trying to build a portfolio of wildlife lenses, budget and time permitting, but to fill gaps, I sometimes use a 1.4 times teleconverter. Do you ever use those in pro level photography or just lenses only? I'm going to read this again. I'm trying to build a portfolio of wildlife lenses, budget and time permitting, but to fill the gaps, I sometimes use a 1.4 converter. Do you use those in pro level photography? Again, I'm going to say this again. I'm not a pro photographer. I don't make money off my photography. I help people like you guys to make money off yours if you want to, or to just get you the shots. There's nothing wrong with teleconverters as long as you start with decent glass. Because remember, you put teleconverter in front of lens, so there's lens, you put teleconverter in the front, the light has to go through more levels of glass, which drops the quality. So if you're starting with, for example, a 2.8 or a 4 lens at a push, the primes, I would stick it on there. But if you're going to try and go like 100, 400 and then slap a 2x converter on there, unless you have very good light, I don't think it's worth it. Also, I'm going to divert onto your question here. Why do you want a portfolio of wildlife lenses? In my mind, unless you're doing this full time and you're making money, you're putting food on the table with your photography, why don't you just have a 7200, your body a 2470, and then rent as you need it? Because then you can always have the best glass for the job. Just a thought. Right. Matt McKean, question. Do you import into Lightroom as a .dng file or keep the same raw format that comes out of camera? Now, I don't know if Matt listened to this podcast. One of the previous episodes is called The Story of a Black Muddy Lion. Go and check it out. In there, I tell the story of how that black muddy lion, when I imported that into my Lightroom a million years ago, I converted to DNG because it was like a cool thing to do at the time, and it cost me a final spot in the Wildlife Photographer of the Year competition. The only benefit to me of shooting a DNG, or sorry, not shooting original, but converting to DNG, is that it uses a little bit less space. Right now, these hard drives, I mean, these things don't cost what they used to, so you could very easily just do native. My recommendation to my clients as well, even when I teach someone from scratch to do Lightroom, stay native. Stay with the format that the camera shoots. Okay, moving up here. Brendan asks, when you travel, do you also photograph people in the street going about their daily lives? And if so, how has wildlife photography helped you capture people in the street scenes, i.e., other than the fundamentals which applies to everything? What aspects specifically to wildlife have you carried over to photographing people? Love the question. And it's that kind of question that led me to host a street photography workshop in Chicago now during February. And the idea was, I there did a lecture first on wildlife photography and certain techniques that are very wildlife photography specific. And there's many of them. Thinking on the go, knowing your camera, understanding background change, understanding light change, moving subject, you can't move, look at what's around you. So there's a lot of those things. And we then went onto the street and applied that methodology. So I do think wildlife photographers as a genre are a lot more, use the right word, Jerry, agile with the way they shoot. Studio people, wedding people sometimes have to be they know what they want, right? It's there. That's what I want to photograph. Can you do it again? Whereas with wildlife, we have to be changing and adjusting all the time. And I think applying that to a street photography scene can be useful because things happen quick. So do I do it often? Actually, hang on. Brendan, I will chat to you. I literally, before I started this, I got a message from Brendan. He just arrived in Longyearbyen, where I'm flying to tomorrow. He's joining me in Svalbard on my expedition. So he asked us a couple of weeks ago. Anyway, I'll chat to you, Brendan, up on the boat. We can do this. I'm leaning more towards people and travel photography the last while because I think there's more to nature photography and wildlife photography. And a lot of the people who are doing very good documentary photography within the conservation genre is telling the stories of the people around wildlife. So, and for me, where it started was our people in the Mara camp. They were the reason I started photographing people. I mean, I've worked in lodges in this industry for 15 something years, right? Oh, cool t-shirt. Check. Thanks, Laurie. And I never used to photograph the people because after the first 6 times you think, fuck this, it's enough now. But the amount of amazing visuals and experiences we created around the Wild Eye Mara camp, around the fire, that we photograph, I've started running workshops at the camp to show people how to photograph that kind of deep, dark, ambient light around the campfire with Maasai's dark skin. That when I went to Borneo, Chris and I went walking around the fish markets, we photographed people. Madagascar, we photographed the people and the guides and stuff like this. So I do think it's a big value add. I also think the spin-off, which your question leads to, of what does wildlife teach you for that and what does that teach you for wildlife, is golden. Absolutely golden. Primates. I often say to my people when they come and do primates with me, gorillas, chimps, orangutans, do even an online portrait photography course, because this versus that versus that, everything's different, right? The eyebrows, the face, everything. Cats and primates is golden. So I do think there's big value in photographing both. I really do. This happens to be the last one, and I'm not going to go too deep into this, but let me ask you the question first. Matt asks, question, how do you feel about the recent video post of safari guides allowing cheetahs on vehicles and clients acting with utter disrespect? For me, it's just disgusting and 100% avoidable. Andrew Beck, who is part of my team at Wild Eye, he's one of my co-founders with me, then said, Matt, can worms open? Now, I've done this in the past. Marlon and I spoke about this, but before I give you my shortened answer, Johan was recently in the Serengeti and they had cheetahs who's trying to jump on their car. He got videos of all of this. So as soon as I'm back from Svalbard, around about 5-6 June, Johan and I are going to record a podcast and a video and show you those videos and discuss why and how and what. So that I want to go deep into it then, right? Matt, you say it's disgusting and 100% avoidable. I agree with you. I also think guides who do that are fucking idiots and they need to be kicked out of parks and never drive again. I think clients who allow, and look, I understand there's an education, but then it's first the guide's fault for not educating properly and saying, no, we're not going to do this because X, Y, and Z. There's the reasons. But any guest who wants that, any guest who asks for that, you should rather stay home because you're in it for the wrong reason. There it is. So Matt, I'm going to keep it short and tight for now, but like I said, Johan and I are going to go deep into this one. So if any of you, while I've got you here on YouTube, on Instagram TV, and on the podcast, if you have images or stories around cheetahs jumping on vehicles or guides saying, and I hope they're out there, that no, this is not going to happen, we're going to back up, please send it to me. My email is jerry@wildeye.co.za, wild with a hyphen i.co.za, because I would love to include this. It's happening more and more and more, and it's all sorts of messed up. It's just wrong. Just wrong. Funny enough, so questions done, Q&A done, right? But there's another thing that's happening now, and it's happening in the Masai Mara a lot. I don't know if it's because of competitions or trying to be different, is these low angle things. So either people are putting cameras on the floor and camera trapping it as the lions or elephants walk past, or they're hanging down with a monopod shooting upside down and then flipping the image. Or, and I hope this is not the case, they're using these Beetle cam buggy driven remote control cars to get close and low. It's a thing. Over the last couple of months, it's happening more and more and more. And it goes back to gimmicks. Why do we have to have gimmicks for our photography to stand out? I get low angle, I understand it. But we also have to understand and appreciate the interaction we're having with the wildlife. Maybe a discussion for another time. Anyway, there we go. Q&A 220 wrapped up. Thanks for the question, guys. There was a few more. I'm going to tell you to just roll them over. Just pushed for time a little bit. So, like I said, it's now 4 o'clock. I'm in Oslo. I'm going to now go and forage. Just had a nice shower because all the flights and stuff, you know how it is. So I'm going to forage and get some food. And then I'm going to get these things live. And then tomorrow I fly to Longyearbyen. I will still be online for 2 days. So if you do follow on Instagram, if you do see this ahead of time, stay tuned. Going to be doing some live streams from there. I'm going to hopefully be doing some vlogs, just depending on client activity, because that always takes preference. But I will be sharing some from there as well. Then, just to look ahead again, episode 221, the one that's going to follow this episode, Johan does a discussion. He takes that one and he talks about safe mode in photography. He had a client which started from scratch, basically, and he taught her all the variables, but in a very safe way. Nice one. Number 222, for those of you that remember way back, Andrew and I used to do the photo, what was it called? The weekly photo chat. And Andrew Beck started doing Talking Travel. It fizzled off because things kind of grew. Talking Travel's coming back, and in episode 222, Andrew speaks to Johan about Nyamatusi, which is a brand new lodge in Monopools. And we're going to do more of those where we talk about a destination to showcase it to you, to tell you how to get there, how many rooms, how the rates, So it's Talking Travel. It's an educational thing from a travel point of view. And obviously we would have been to this place either from a photography or a private guided point of view. So we're going to try and give that knowledge onto you. That's episode 222. And in episode 223, it was a pretty cool one. I spoke to Shannon Elizabeth. She's an actress from the US. She's been in, the main one where guys will remember from American Pie many moons ago. Anyway, she's moved into conservation. She's doing some amazing work, and I did an interview with her, which we talk about conservation and everything in between and related. So, I'm hungry. I need to go find something to eat. Guys, as always, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. I truly appreciate your time. Any questions you have, keep on sending them through, either on my email, jerry@wildeye.co.za, or then on my Instagram or social media platforms, Jerry van der Walt. If it's a nice topic, like for example, this cheetah thing, Johanna and I are going to dig deeper into it. If you have anything specific that you think is worth a standalone Q&A episode or a standalone podcast, keep on sending them through. Your comments and engagement is literally like oxygen to me, and it means the world. Thank you so much. For now, though, I'm going to say goodbye from Oslo. I don't know how to say that in Norwegian. But anyway, I will chat to you all in the next episode. Thanks for watching. My name is Jerry. I'm from Wild Eye. Have a good one. Bye-bye.